This is the Terracotta Army. 8,000 warriors buried over 2,000 years ago. One of the greatest wonders of the world.
Buried beneath a silent hill in China lies a tomb untouched for over 2,000 years. A vault so secretive, not even time has dared to breach it. At its center is the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, a ruler who didn't just conquer a nation, he tried to conquer death itself. But now, in a twist worthy of legend, modern scientists claim they've uncovered something hidden in his very blood. Could it be true? Could ancient secrets, locked beneath the earth and myth, be leaking into the hands of modern science? This is more than archaeology. This is a collision of past and future, myth and molecule. The answer may change how we see the first emperor forever. From prince to emperor, Yingzheng was born in 259 BCE into the ruling family of the Qin state, one of the 7 major powers during China's Warring States period. His father, King Xiang of Qin, ruled a relatively powerful but geographically isolated kingdom in western China. Though his exact lineage has been debated by historians, Yingzheng's status as the king's legitimate heir positioned him early on for a pivotal role in shaping Chinese history. From birth, his destiny was intertwined with political intrigue, as the Qin court was known for its intense factional rivalries and manipulation by powerful advisors. In 246 BCE, at just 13 years old, Yingzheng ascended to the throne following his father's death. Too young to rule directly, the reins of government were initially held by the Prime Minister Liu Bui, who acted as regent. During this period, the Qin court was rife with conspiracies and power struggles, which Yingzheng would later suppress with ruthless efficiency. As he matured, he gradually wrested control from his advisors, eventually consolidating full authority by eliminating rivals within the court, including the regent who had once dominated the kingdom's political landscape. In his very auspicious beginning as ruler, he launched numerous progressive moves to increase Qin dominion beyond its own borders. A series of calculated advances using diplomacy, espionage, and tireless military campaigns caused him to defeat the other 6 of the warring states: Han, Zhao, Yan, Wei, Chu, and Qi. In terms of his generals, particularly General Wang Jian, the offensives were sharp and precise, while Yingzheng himself executed strategic alliances and betrayals for the purpose of destabilizing enemies. Unlike previous rulers who merely sought power over a region, his vision encompassed more than that. It was of complete integration under a central authority, unprecedented ambition in the history of China. He declared himself Qin Shi Huang, meaning first emperor of Qin, not a king, but literally an emperor over all under heaven, the whole world, in 221 BCE, after 22 years of battles and conquests over other kingdoms, with this act also declaring the Qin dynasty and launching what was to be a very radical transformation of governance, culture, and identity in China. This event signified the change from young prince to emperor, truly bringing the warring states' chaos to an end and inaugurating a unified, centralized imperial China that would shape many future dynasties for millennia to come. With the empire finally under his grip, Qin Shi Huang's next move wasn't conquest. It was transformation on a scale no ruler had ever dared attempt, the formation of an empire. Following his unprecedented unification of China in 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang quickly turned his attention to consolidating and standardizing the newly formed empire. One of his first and most impactful reforms was the introduction of uniform systems of currency, weights, measures, and legal codes. These changes were not merely symbolic, they were practical tools for integrating a culturally and economically fragmented land. With previously independent states using different coinage and measurement units, trade and taxation had been inefficient and inconsistent. Qin Shi Huang's reforms brought order to economic transactions and legal administration, ensuring that a single law applied to all subjects, regardless of their former allegiances. Equally transformative was the standardization of the written script. Although various Chinese states had used similar logographic characters, Regional variants made communication across the empire difficult. Qin Shi Huang's government mandated a simplified and uniform script known as small seal script, which eliminated local differences. This reform allowed officials from distant provinces to communicate effectively with the central government, and it helped foster a sense of shared cultural identity among the newly united population. The writing system laid the foundation for a literate bureaucracy and helped preserve the emperor's laws, decrees, and historical records in a consistent format. The vast empire of Qin Shi Huang had a system of centralized bureaucracy that broke away from the old one, whose authority depended on the noble class. The empire was then divided into administrative regions, called commanderies and counties, under officials appointed on the ground of loyalty and merit, any of whom were born into the noble class. Such meritocratic appointments prevented the input of major, formidable families and involved a string of commands right from the emperor to local administrators. This gave Qin state control of its vast lands wanted and secured a model legacy for what other dynasties would follow in the future long-term control of the country in the hands of civil servants loyal to the state. Buildings were another dimension of Qin Shi Huang's vision toward constructing an empire. The monarch embarked on massive public works, creating, among various others, the national networks of roads, which now linked the capital to every major part of the empire. The roads facilitated the movement of fleets, goods, and information at improved speeds, minimizing distances in the vast empire. His command was an order for the construction of canal systems, meant both to induce irrigation and traffic efficiency, and to augment agricultural yield as well as regional trade. Apart from these engineering achievements, strengthening the economic standing of the empire, they also served as a testimony to the power of the emperor to reshape the land itself, an embodiment of his centralized, all-encompassing rule. Suppression and control. Qin Shi Huang's reign was marked by an unrelenting drive to maintain absolute control over his newly unified empire. Central to this was the enforcement of a strict legalist philosophy, which emphasized obedience, uniformity, and harsh punishments. The emperor's legal code introduced collective responsibility, where families and even entire communities could be punished for the crimes of a single member. This system was designed to instill fear and compliance, ensuring that lawbreakers were not only deterred by the severity of punishment, but also by the social consequences of bringing harm to their kin. Public executions, mutilations, and forced labor were common penalties under Qin law, reinforcing a culture of discipline and submission. One of the most infamous episodes of Qin Shi Huang's reign occurred in 213 BCE, when he ordered the burning of books that did not align with the state's legalist ideology. Texts related to Confucianism, Taoism, and historical records from rival states were destroyed in an effort to eliminate alternative worldviews. According to historical accounts, the following year saw an even more brutal measure. Hundreds of scholars were allegedly buried alive for criticizing the regime or attempting to preserve forbidden texts. Though some modern historians question the scale of this event, it has endured as a powerful symbol of the emperor's intolerance for dissent and his willingness to erase intellectual opposition. The Qin regime resorted to surveillance and censorship for the complete extinction of political ideologies in the empire, assigning local officials with incoming tasks of general law enforcement, but more with overseeing spoken words, beliefs, and behavior. Informants and secret police were allegedly used in a move towards identifying and repressing dissenters while encouraging inter-citizen reports. Control of the information also extended to inscriptions, public decrees, and even monuments, all carefully crafted to promote loyalty to the emperor and crush individual thought. By monopolizing knowledge and communication, Qin Shi Huang created a closely monitored environment where alternative ideas could hardly fight for their existence. This fear was further complemented by an intentional projection of Qin Shi Huang's image according to state-mandated ideology and myth, presenting himself as the son of heaven and a king who has a higher mandate than that of the mortal world. He is thus the center of the cosmic order. He is portrayed as the bringer of peace and unity after centuries of chaos in official records and inscriptions, while his divine status is marked by his grand construction projects, such as his tomb and palaces. His quest for immortality and cosmic power further expanded into the narrative of a ruler destined to rule over not just the present world, but over eternity. Construction of a tomb for eternity. Qin Shi Huang began constructing his monumental tomb as soon as he ascended the throne at the age of 13. The project was a physical manifestation of his ambition, not only to unify China in life, but to continue his rule into eternity. Ancient historical records, particularly those of the historian Sima Qian, describe how the emperor prioritized the construction of his mausoleum even before completing his military conquests. This early start allowed for decades of uninterrupted building, a testament to the scale of his vision and his deep preoccupation with death and immortality. To bring this vision to life, an enormous workforce was conscripted. Historical sources estimate that up to 700,000 laborers were involved over the course of the project. These workers included soldiers, craftsmen, and engineers, as well as convicts and enslaved individuals who were forced into service. Artisans of various specialties, potters, sculptors, metalsmiths, were employed to construct the intricate elements of the tomb. The scale and complexity of the project required vast coordination, resource extraction, and centralized planning, reflecting the emperor's capacity to mobilize human capital on an unprecedented scale. While the necropolis was created as an underground simulacrum for the emperor's living empire, the heart of any imperial necropolis would be an inner undisclosed burial chamber, believed to be outfitted with a palace and sacred relics, with rivers of mercury meant to simulate real waterways. In that very sense, there were hundreds of even more modest pits and structures surrounding this core: barracks, stables, courts of entertainment, and administrative quarters, staffed by symbolic representations in the form of terracotta soldiers, animals, musicians, and servants. The underground city was to operate as a living reflection of the imperial court, thereby ensuring the continued rule of Qin Shi Huang's will over his subjects in another world. The tomb complex stretched over an area of about 38 square miles, or the size of present-day San Francisco, built with an eye to the practical and ceremonial, but also the cosmic alignment. The layout is thought to symbolize ancient Chinese cosmology and incorporates principles of feng shui and the five elements theory. The emperor set his everlasting kingdom in accordance with the natural landscape and celestial order, signifying his ambition to rule not just the earth, but the universe itself. Every individual detail of the tomb was consciously designed to convey a sense that his rule was not just political. It was forever and divinely ordained. The Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army was accidentally discovered in 1974 by local farmers digging a well near Xi'an in China's Shanxi province. What they unearthed would become one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century: a vast underground army of life-sized clay soldiers buried in military formation. These figures were part of the larger mausoleum complex of Qin Shi Huang and are believed to have been placed there to protect the emperor in the afterlife. Since the initial discovery, ongoing excavations have revealed over 8,000 warriors, along with horses, chariots, and a variety of non-combat personnel, offering a striking glimpse into the military and cultural world of the Qin dynasty. Each terracotta soldier is uniquely crafted, with individual facial expressions, hairstyles, postures, and clothing details. These variations are not merely artistic flourishes, they reflect different ranks, roles, and ethnic backgrounds within the army. Officers are distinguished by their elaborate armor and formal stances, while foot soldiers wear simpler attire. Facial features range widely, suggesting the Qin army may have included recruits from across the empire's vast territories. This level of realism and diversity underscores both the skill of the artisans and the emperor's intention to replicate a truly formidable force that could represent his rule beyond death. There used to be a production of the terracotta army that was not purely handmade. Archaeological evidence indicates that warriors were manufactured from an early system of assembly line manufacturing. Standard size molds were developed to mold out body parts, that is, things that would have been called heads, arms, and legs. The different parts were assembled and customized with surface details. Some pottery stamps found on certain figures reference the names of specific workshops and even individual artisans who created them. It illustrates this level of organization by the state in an industrialized fashion, emphasizing the efficient massiveness with which the Qin would execute highly coordinated undertakings under state control. The terracotta army served ultimately as an investment in spiritual symbolism. Ancient Chinese beliefs held that the afterlife was a continuation of the worldly, so that it had to have the same institutions and protections. Qin Shi Huang, whose maniacal obsession was holding on to power beyond death, therefore also ordered this immortal army to guard him in the metaphysical world. Their position is not just for show, however. These men are intended to be deployed at a moment's notice to represent power, the projection of imperial grandeur into eternity. The presence of the army in the tomb serves to ensure the order, control, and military might that the emperor wanted to exert, even in the other world. If the army guarding the tomb is this elaborate, imagine what lies hidden in the chamber they were built to protect. Secrets of the Sealed Chamber. Ancient Chinese historian Sima Qian, writing around a century after Qin Shi Huang's death, left tantalizing descriptions of the emperor's sealed burial chamber. According to his records, the inner sanctum of the tomb contained miniature landscapes of China, complete with rivers and seas simulated using flowing mercury. The ceiling, he claimed, was embedded with pearls and precious stones arranged to mirror the constellations, forming a cosmic map that echoed the heavens above. These descriptions were not mere embellishments. They reflected the emperor's vision of ruling both the earthly and celestial realms, even in death. Modern science has provided surprising evidence that supports some of these ancient claims. Soil samples taken from the area around the burial mound have revealed mercury concentrations that are dozens, sometimes hundreds, of times higher than natural background levels. While mercury was commonly used in ancient Chinese alchemy and medicine, the scale and distribution of the element in this specific context suggest a deliberate architectural feature, not incidental contamination. These findings lend credence to the idea that rivers of mercury, as described in historical texts, may indeed exist within the tomb as symbolic representations of the empire's geography. Remotely sensed technologies have enabled the research of the tomb without disturbing its structure. GPR and electrical resistivity imaging indicate various underground phenomena of empty voids, dense objects, and structural layouts underneath the mound. Some of the features are related to mechanical traps like crossbows meant to fire when intruded that are consistent with the accounts of Sima Qian regarding deadly booby traps. So far, there has been no clear evidence regarding working weapons, but the detection of strategic voids and concentrations of metal indicates a highly sophisticated internal design built to protect the core chamber of the tomb from time and trespassers. It is widely accepted that the burial chamber of Qin Shi Huang was built to be a microcosm of his empire, so significantly adorned, laid out, and filled with every feature that she could represent all that the known world held while under his rule. The networks of artificial rivers, mountains, and other celestial patterns were probably intended to create a symbolic universe where he would be the last who would command it. The conception matches with ancient beliefs of the Chinese, where heaven, earth, and man had to be in harmony, and it accentuates Qin Shi Huang's aim to not only rebel against death, but also secure his existence at the center of the cosmos. The chamber may still remain unopened, yet today's science continues to uncover signs that make these formerly mythical descriptions nearer to reality. The DNA rumors. In recent years, sensational headlines and viral social media posts have claimed that scientists have successfully extracted and sequenced the DNA of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. These reports often suggest that genetic analysis has revealed detailed insights into the emperor's appearance, health, and even personality traits. Some stories go as far as to describe facial reconstructions and behavioral tendencies supposedly derived from his genetic code. While captivating, these claims lack credible scientific backing and are rooted more in speculation and pseudoscience than in verified research. In reality, Qin Shi Huang's burial chamber, the only place where his remains would likely be found, remains completely sealed and untouched. Despite numerous archaeological efforts and technological advancements, no one has physically entered the central tomb. This means that no human remains attributed to the emperor have been excavated, let alone subjected to DNA testing. Chinese authorities have emphasized a cautious, preservation-first approach, citing the potential for irreversible damage to artifacts and the tomb's delicate internal environment. As such, any assertions that his genome has been sequenced are demonstrably false. Even if one got market access to the tomb today, extracting any viable ancient DNA from skeletal remains older than 2,200 years would still present an awful challenge. In fact, DNA gets degraded very fast in such warm and humid conditions as those of central China. Although several successful records of ancient DNA access from Neanderthals, mummies, and individuals preserved in permafrost exist, all of those proofs have benefited from exceptional conditions for preservation, mostly drying, freezing, or sealing. Unless somehow the corpse of Qin Shi Huang was preserved under conditions which were uniquely stable, the probability for either a complete or partial genome recovery, even with today's extremely advanced techniques, extremely low. Moreover, the interpretive power of DNA is often overstated in popular media. Genetic tests can sample ancestral origins, susceptibility to particular diseases, or even determine approximations of eye color and hair color, but they cannot describe the reality of psychological traits, personal behaviors, and, especially, facial characteristics. Complex traits like intelligence, temperament, or leadership style are the resultant sums from the intricate interplay of genes and environment. Most decoded cannot be determined from DNA alone. That we might reconstruct the personality or appearance of Qin Shi Huang from genetic material is nothing more than a modern myth, reflecting the popular fascination with the ancients but not the limits of current science. Obsession with immortality. Qin Shi Huang's obsession with immortality was one of the most defining and tragic elements of his reign. Convinced that death could be conquered, the emperor turned to the court alchemists of his time, who promised life-extending potions and magical elixirs. These concoctions often contained mercury, a substance believed in ancient Chinese alchemy to have transformative, life-preserving powers. The emperor consumed these mercury-laced elixirs regularly, trusting in their mystical promise of eternal life, unaware of their toxic nature. This reliance on alchemical medicine reflected both the emperor's fear of mortality and his desire to reign not just over China, but forever. Historical texts also describe several ambitious expeditions commissioned by Qin Shi Huang to locate the legendary elixir of life. One of the most well-known was led by the court magician Xu Fu, who was sent eastward across the seas with hundreds of young men and women, allegedly in search of the mythical Penglai Island, a land of immortals. These voyages, which some speculate may have reached as far as Japan, were driven by the emperor's belief that immortality was not just achievable, but physically discoverable. Despite their scale and expense, these missions returned no known success, further illustrating the emperor's desperation to escape death. Unfortunately, modern science has proven that the mercury-based elixirs intended to preserve Qin Shi Huang's life might have precipitated his death at 49 years. Historical accounts tell of an increasingly irregular mental behavior in his later years, paranoia, secrecy, and failing health of which are symptoms of chronic mercury poisoning. More than giving him immortality, the substances would very likely have hastened his demise rather than prolonged it. This irony forms a cautionary tale in both medical history and in ancient belief systems. This was supported by archaeologists, who have discovered the physical evidence of alchemical works on a grand scale that have been associated with the palaces and tomb sites of the Qin era. Excavations have uncovered special laboratories, crucibles, and vessels that were used for the preparation of elixirs and rituals. Chemical investigations of residues inside some of these containers confirmed the presence of mercury, as well as traces of gold and jade are elements conventionally associated with Taoist immortality practices. Such discoveries show how deeply the eternal life was rooted in the emperor's court, and how sciences and superstition were mixed in one of the highest historical bids to defy death: modern technological probes. Modern technology has revolutionized the way archaeologists study ancient sites like the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, enabling exploration without physically disturbing delicate structures. One of the earliest and most widely used tools is ground-penetrating radar, GPR, which emits radio waves into the earth and records the signals reflected back by buried objects or changes in soil composition. GPR surveys around the emperor's tomb have revealed multiple subsurface anomalies, interpreted as hidden chambers, passageways, and voids. These findings suggest a complex internal layout consistent with ancient texts, which describe vast underground halls and intricate architectural features. Another cutting-edge method used to examine the tomb is muon tomography, a technique that employs naturally occurring cosmic rays to scan large, dense objects. When muons pass through different materials, they slow down or scatter, allowing scientists to build a 3D map of the interior structure based on how the rays are absorbed. Applied to the burial mound, muon scans have revealed variations in density that align with the expected location of the central burial chamber and possible side rooms. This non-invasive X-ray vision offers tantalizing clues about the tomb's contents without breaking its seal. Magnetometry has been successfully used to determine alterations in the Earth's magnetic field due to buried metals or construction material. In the case of Qin Shi Huang's tomb, this methodology has pointed to the possibly metal-rich areas that could contain relics, such as weapons ornaments or the legendary mechanical crossbows said by folklore to guard the emperor's chamber. Furthermore, variability in magnetic signatures could be indicative of man-made objects like barriers or trap systems engineered to dissuade grave robbers. These findings offer scientific evidence for ancient claims of intricate security, such as lethally entrusted booby traps. Efforts were diverted into the elaboration of robotic explorers designed specifically to navigate the tight and dangerous spaces of the tomb during the last few years. These small, sensor-equipped robots can enter through small boreholes to take high-definition images, temperature readings, and atmospheric data. Some are actually outfitted with chemical sensors to detect the vapors of mercury and of organic decay. These robotic probes are the next frontier in archaeological exploration because they enable us to wash over and study the secrets of the tomb without disturbing the fragile internal environment or violating cultural sanctity. While technology edges closer to unlocking the tomb's secrets, its true significance stretches far beyond science alone. Cultural significance. Qin Shi Huang's tomb stands as one of the most ambitious funerary projects in human history, often compared to other monumental burial sites, such as Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Like the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, the first emperor of China constructed his tomb as a gateway to the afterlife, filled with symbolic representations of earthly power meant to accompany him beyond death. Both cultures believed in a continuation of existence after physical demise and equipped their rulers with the means to rule eternally. Yet, while Egyptian tombs were carved into rock and filled with ornate treasures and mummified remains, Qin Shi Huang's necropolis took the form of an entire subterranean empire, complete with an army, court entertainers, and cosmic symbolism. Similar traditions can also be seen in Mesoamerican and Eurasian Scythian burial practices. The Maya and Aztecs interred their rulers in pyramids decorated with cosmological art and surrounded them with offerings and sacrificial victims intended to maintain order in the spiritual realm. The Scythians buried their elite with horses and weapons, ensuring readiness for the afterlife. These parallels highlight a recurring human desire across civilizations to preserve power and identity beyond death. However, Qin Shi Huang's tomb took this impulse to an unparalleled extreme, incorporating complex symbolism, architectural scale, and engineering sophistication unmatched by contemporaneous cultures. What truly sets the first emperor's tomb apart is its sheer scale and meticulous planning. Spanning approximately 38 square miles, the necropolis dwarfs other royal burial grounds of its time. Unlike the singular chambers of Egyptian kings or the stacked tombs of Mesoamerican rulers, Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum is a vast complex structured as a reflection of his imperial domain. Every detail, from the terracotta army to the hypothesized Mercury rivers, was designed to perpetuate his rule and cosmological significance. This architectural and logistical feat required enormous resources and a centralized administrative system capable of mobilizing hundreds of thousands of workers, underscoring the political power and ambition of the Qin state. Today, the tomb's immense cultural and historical value has prompted global calls for its careful preservation. Both Chinese authorities and international organizations like UNESCO emphasize a conservation-first approach, balancing scientific curiosity with ethical responsibility. The vivid cautionary tale of the terracotta warriors, whose painted surfaces faded rapidly upon exposure, serves as a reminder of what could be lost through premature excavation. As technology advances, the hope is that non-invasive methods will continue to reveal insights without compromising the integrity of this world wonder. In this sense, Qin Shi Huang's tomb remains not only a relic of the past, but also a modern symbol of cultural heritage stewardship. Qin Shi Huang's tomb also serves as a profound cultural artifact that encapsulates the ideological transformation of ancient China under unification. The very structure of the mausoleum mirrors the centralized authority and standardization efforts that defined the Qin dynasty, its grid-like layout reflecting bureaucratic order, and its symbolic elements reinforcing the emperor's role as the axis between heaven and earth. In crafting a burial complex that functioned as a microcosm of his empire, Qin Shi Huang asserted not only political dominance, but also a spiritual mandate that intertwined statecraft with cosmic legitimacy. The tomb thus stands as a physical expression of legalist thought and the belief in imperial divinity, projecting power across both spatial and metaphysical realms. Moreover, the tomb has become a cornerstone of Chinese national identity, linking modern China to its imperial roots. As one of the most iconic archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the terracotta army and the broader necropolis have ignited public imagination and scholarly interest worldwide. The site fosters cultural pride and continuity, reminding Chinese citizens of their country's deep historical foundations and achievements in governance, engineering, and artistic expression. In doing so, it transcends its original funerary purpose to become a symbol of enduring civilization, historical memory, and China's evolving relationship with its past. If this glimpse into the hidden world of China's first emperor left you curious for more, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts or theories, and subscribe for deeper dives into history's greatest mysteries. And before you go, be sure to click on the next video on your screen. There's plenty more waiting to be uncovered. See you there.